My family took over my cabin for a party, but their faces changed when my husband walked in. The wine glasses clinked. Laughter erupted. Music pulsed against the cedar walls of the cabin, as if the entire place had been rented for some grand family reunion. Except it hadn't. It was mine. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where you're from and which city you're watching our videos from. And after watching the whole story, don't forget to tell us what you do in this situation. Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. My phone buzzed non-stop with notifications. I was sitting in the crowded departure lounge at Denver International Airport, waiting for my connecting flight to Seattle, when my best friend Brooklyn texted, "Victoria, you're not going to believe this. Check your inbox now." I opened the videos she'd sent, and my jaw dropped. There they were, my parents, my sister Savannah, her arrogant fiancé Tyler, even my cousin Blake, all dancing and drinking in the lakeside cabin I'd secretly purchased 3 months ago in the Colorado Rockies. The same cabin they had mocked me for even dreaming about owning. In the first video, Savannah twirled around the living room, holding a bottle of Dom Perignon champagne. "Finally, a place worth celebrating in," she sneered at the camera. "Too bad it isn't actually hers." The others roared with laughter behind her. I gripped my iPhone so hard my knuckles went white. My heart pounded, not from shock, but from a cold familiar anger that had been building for 32 years. They had done this my entire life. Mocked me, dismissed my dreams, used me when it was convenient, then threw me aside like yesterday's newspaper. Now they were parading around inside the one thing I'd kept hidden, the one place I thought was mine alone. My sanctuary. My escape from their constant criticism and belittling comments. My husband Cameron was on a business trip in Boulder, only 2 hours away from Lake Granby where my cabin sat nestled among the pine trees. With trembling but determined fingers, I forwarded Brooklyn's videos to him immediately. Within 5 minutes, my phone rang. Cameron's voice was calm, but I could hear the storm brewing beneath it like thunder rolling across the mountains. "Tell me this isn't real, Victoria." "It's real," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the airport announcements. "They broke in. They're celebrating like they own the place." Silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Then came a single sentence that made my stomach twist with anticipation. "I'm getting in the truck right now." I sat frozen in that uncomfortable terminal chair, earbuds in, watching another video Brooklyn had secretly recorded through the cabin's front window. My mother Patricia raised her wine glass high and declared loudly, "At least one of us has the backbone to enjoy this place properly, not like my daughter who wastes her life chasing impossible dreams." My vision blurred, but I didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, a strange calmness spread through me like morning mist over the lake, because I knew exactly what was about to happen when Cameron walked through that cabin door. An hour and 47 minutes later, he did exactly that. Brooklyn's camera caught the moment perfectly. The music cut off mid-beat like someone had yanked the power cord. Every laugh turned to stunned silence. Cameron stepped through the front door, all 6'3" of him, broad shoulders filling the doorframe, his jaw set like granite, holding up his phone with my forwarded videos still playing on the screen. He didn't need to shout. The look on his face was enough to turn their wild celebration into absolute dread. The slam of the heavy oak door echoed louder than any music they'd been playing. My family froze mid-laugh, champagne glasses suspended halfway to their lips like they'd been turned to stone. The fire in the stone fireplace crackled ominously, but no one dared move a muscle. Cameron Mitchell stepped into my living room, every inch of him rigid with controlled fury. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His silence was sharper than any blade. In his weathered hand, his phone glowed like a beacon of truth. The videos played on repeat, Savannah spinning around mocking me, Patricia raising her glass in a toast to my failures, my father Richard slurring about how his pathetic daughter would never amount to anything worthwhile. "Interesting party," Cameron said finally, his voice low but cutting through the tension like a hot knife through butter. "Did my wife forget to invite me, or did all of you just forget this house doesn't belong to any of you?" My mother tried to salvage the situation with a nervous chuckle, her face draining of color. "Cameron, sweetheart, don't be so dramatic. We were just breaking and entering," Cameron finished coldly. "Trespassing. Mocking Victoria in her own home, drinking her wine, celebrating like parasites in the one place she kept sacred from your toxic behavior." The champagne glass in Savannah's manicured hand began to tremble. She glanced desperately at Tyler, who whispered, "Stay calm. He's all bark, no bite." But Cameron's piercing blue eyes narrowed on Tyler like a hawk spotting prey. "Tyler, right? You laughed the loudest in that video. Something funny about trashing your fiancée's sister behind her back." Tyler opened his mouth like a fish gasping for air, but no words came out. My father finally stood up, puffing out his chest as if trying to reclaim some authority in the room. "Listen here, Cameron. This family built everything Victoria has. She owes us. That cabin should have been shared with family, not hidden away like some dirty secret." Cameron took 3 deliberate steps closer, his shadow swallowing Richard's false bravado. "Shared." His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Victoria worked 60-hour weeks for 3 years straight. Every dollar that bought these walls, every nail in this cedar came from her sweat and sacrifice, not yours." He turned his attention to my mother, his finger pointing directly at her guilty face. "And you, mocking her dreams when she sacrificed more for this family than any of you parasites ever deserved." Patricia's face flushed crimson like she'd been slapped. "She's our daughter. We have every right to." "No," Cameron snapped, his voice finally booming through the cabin for the first time, rattling the windows. "You have no rights here. Not anymore. You've humiliated her for the last time. You've turned her kindness into an open invitation to abuse her generosity and stomp on her dreams." He swept his arm around the cabin, his voice trembling with barely restrained rage. "But this." He gestured to the vaulted ceilings, the custom stone fireplace, the hand-carved furniture Victoria had chosen so carefully. "This ends tonight." The silence was suffocating. My family stood there like deer caught in headlights, guilt written across some faces, stubborn denial across others. I wasn't physically present, but I felt every word through Brooklyn's live video feed. Every line of truth Cameron delivered was something I'd buried in my chest for decades. Savannah finally hissed like a cornered snake. "So what? She buys one little cabin and suddenly thinks she's better than the rest of us? She'll always be the same pathetic girl begging for daddy's approval. She can't erase who she really is." Cameron turned slowly, his eyes burning into her like laser beams. "You're absolutely right about one thing, Savannah. Victoria can't erase who she is. She's loyal, hardworking, and stronger than any of you will ever be. But what she can erase is who you are in her life." His voice grew deadly quiet. "After tonight, none of you will see her unless she specifically chooses to allow it. And if you set foot on this property again, I promise you the sheriff's department will handle the situation." Blake shifted uncomfortably in the corner, muttering, "Come on, Savannah. Maybe we pushed too far this time." "Too far?" Cameron barked, whirling around to face him. "You filmed yourselves mocking her. You broke into her sanctuary and ridiculed the woman who's done nothing but tolerate your abuse for 32 years. Tell me, Blake, was it hilarious when you watched her mother call her a complete failure? Did it make you feel powerful? Because all I see are cowards hiding behind each other's cruel laughter." The words landed like physical punches. Richard's jaw clenched tight, but his eyes darted shamefully to the hardwood floor. Patricia's lips trembled as if excuses were trapped in her throat, fighting to escape. Cameron pocketed his phone and straightened to his full intimidating height. "Here's exactly how this is going to work from now on. Everyone leaves immediately. You walk out of Victoria's cabin and never step foot here again. You don't call her. You don't show up uninvited to her apartment. You don't even whisper her name at family gatherings unless you plan to speak the absolute truth about who she really is." "Or what?" Savannah spat, her pride bleeding through her obvious fear. Cameron leaned closer, his voice becoming a venomous whisper that would haunt their dreams. "Or I'll make sure everyone in Littleton knows exactly what kind of people you really are. I'll post every single video on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube," Cameron continued, his threat hanging in the air like smoke. "Every insult, every toast you made at Victoria's expense, every cruel laugh at her dreams, it'll all be public. And when your so-called friends and neighbors see the truth about your character, it won't be Victoria's reputation that gets shattered. It'll be yours." The room went dead silent except for the crackling fire. No one dared challenge him. Even Savannah, her face twisted with rage and humiliation, couldn't summon a single word in response. Cameron stepped aside and pointed directly at the front door. "Get out. Now. Chairs scraped against the floor. Wine glasses clinked as they were hastily set down on the coffee table. Winter coats were snatched from the hooks by the door. One by one, they filed out like scolded children, Patricia muttering curses under her breath, Richard gripping her arm to shut her up, Savannah storming past with Tyler trailing behind like a whipped dog, Blake keeping his eyes glued to the pine floor. When the last car engine roared to life and disappeared down the winding mountain road, Cameron finally exhaled deeply. He stood alone in the middle of what looked like a war zone, surrounded by empty wine glasses, scattered napkins, and torn party decorations. But the silence now was peaceful, like the calm after a cleansing storm. He picked up Victoria's favorite fleece blanket from the leather couch, folded it carefully with gentle hands, and whispered into the quiet cabin, "They'll never hurt you again, Victoria. Not while I'm breathing." Meanwhile, miles away in that sterile airport terminal, tears finally streamed down my face, not from pain this time, but from overwhelming relief. For once in my entire life, someone had stood up for me when my own blood family would not. The next morning came crisp and clear, typical Colorado autumn weather. The taxi crunched up the gravel road, tires finding their rhythm against the small stones as I finally arrived at my haven. The cabin loomed ahead through the golden aspen trees, morning mist clinging to its edges like nature's own protective veil. For months, I had fantasized about walking up to it for the first time as its proud, secret owner. Instead, my chest burned with the fresh memory of Brooklyn's videos, my family laughing, drinking my wine, tearing into my character as if I were nothing more than their personal joke. Cameron was already waiting on the wraparound porch, coffee mug in hand. His eyes softened the moment he saw me step out of the yellow cab, suitcase in hand, exhaustion etched into every line of my face from the long flight and sleepless night. He came down those wooden steps in 2 quick strides and wrapped me in his strong arms before I could even speak. "They're gone," he murmured against my hair, his voice steady and reassuring. "And they're never coming back." I clutched him tighter, feeling the sting in my throat break into a sob I'd been holding back for hours. "I watched every second, Cameron. Every cruel word they said. I thought I'd grown numb to their poison by now, but it felt like they ripped something vital out of me all over again." Cameron pulled back gently, his calloused hand brushing the tears from my cheek. "No, sweetheart. They didn't rip anything out of you. They just showed their true faces in high definition. You still have everything they'll never be able to touch, your strength, your independence, your dreams, and me." I nodded, but anger still simmered in my gut like a pot about to boil over. I dragged my wheeled suitcase inside, and the sight nearly buckled my knees. Red wine stains on my cream-colored area rug. Crumbs scattered across the granite countertops. Dining chairs left scattered like a tornado had torn through. Empty bottles lined up on my custom mantel like trophies of their disrespect. They hadn't just invaded my sanctuary, they had desecrated it. "This was supposed to be my escape," I whispered, my voice cracking with emotion. "The one place in the world that belonged to me alone, and they turned it into their personal circus tent." Cameron placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "Then we take it back. Not just the cabin, your entire story. No more being their scapegoat. No more letting them control the narrative about who you are. This is your chance to show them you're done making yourself small for their comfort." I sank onto the leather couch, gripping my knees as flashes of painful memories flooded my mind. My father sneering when I chose art school over law. My mother laughing when I got passed over for that promotion at the gallery. Savannah mocking me for dreaming of owning my own space someday. It was always the same cruel chorus: Victoria's not enough. Victoria's not smart enough. Victoria's not successful enough. But last night had changed something fundamental inside me. Cameron's voice, steady and fearless, had sliced through 32 years of their psychological abuse. He hadn't just defended me, he'd forced them to look in the mirror and see what they really were. "They think I'll crawl back like I always do," I said finally, my voice growing steadier with each word. "They've always counted on it, that no matter how badly they treat me, I'll show up at Christmas dinner, forgive them, let them back into my life with open arms. But not this time." Cameron sat beside me on the couch, taking my hand in both of his. "Then what do you want to do, Victoria?" My eyes hardened like steel. "I want them to see that they don't own me anymore. I want them to feel the weight of my absence. The silence of not being able to use me as their favorite punching bag. And when they finally realize I don't need their approval to be happy, that'll be the sweetest revenge of all." Brooklyn arrived around noon with bags of groceries and cleaning supplies, her eyes wide as she surveyed the aftermath. Holy cow, Victoria. They really trashed your beautiful place. I still can't believe you had the restraint not to drive straight here last night and confront them yourself. I managed a thin smile. If I had shown up, it would have turned into World War III. Watching Cameron handle it was perfect. For the first time in my life, they looked genuinely terrified. I wasn't the weak one they could push around. Brooklyn squeezed my hand tight. That's the thing, honey. You were never weak. They just spent decades convincing you that you were. For the rest of that perfect autumn day, Cameron and I worked side by side like a team. We cleaned every inch of the cabin, restoring it to the peaceful sanctuary I had dreamed about for so long. Each wine stain scrubbed from the rug, each broken glass swept up and tossed in the trash, it felt like erasing another scar they had left on my soul. By evening, the cabin was quiet and pristine again. Golden sunlight spilled through the large windows as Lake Granby shimmered beyond the pine trees like scattered diamonds. I stood at my favorite window, watching my reflection stare back at me, tired but unbroken, different somehow. They'll call, Cameron said from behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. They'll try to explain it away. Twist the story. Make you feel guilty for overreacting to their harmless fun. He pressed a gentle kiss to my temple. Are you ready for that emotional manipulation? My lips curved into a bitter but confident smile. Let them call. This time, I won't answer. As if the universe had perfect timing, my phone buzzed right then. The caller ID read Mom. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. Then another call came, this time from Savannah. Then my father. Each time, I placed the phone face down on the counter and turned back to Cameron. The silence will be louder than anything I could possibly say to them, I declared. Cameron studied me with quiet pride glowing in his eyes. There's my strong wife. For the first time in decades, I didn't feel like a desperate daughter begging for scraps of love and approval. I felt like myself, Victoria Mitchell, successful art gallery manager, loving wife, proud cabin owner. I was complete without them. This was just the beginning of my transformation, and I could feel it in my bones. Because revenge didn't always come in the form of slamming doors or shouted arguments. Sometimes the sharpest revenge was simply absence, the undeniable truth that they no longer had any power over my happiness. The cabin was mine. My life was mine. My future was mine. And they would have to sit with that reality while I flourished without them. The silence lasted exactly 3 days. 3 days of unanswered calls, ignored text messages, and unread voicemails piling up on my phone like digital tumbleweeds. At first, it was surprisingly easy to leave it all untouched. But on the 4th morning, a sharp knock rattled the cabin door like gunshots. I froze in my kitchen, coffee mug halfway to my lips. Cameron rose from his chair at the breakfast table, shoulders tensing like a guard dog sensing danger. He opened the door to reveal my parents standing on the porch, faces pale and drawn, the weight of sleepless nights etched into every wrinkle. Savannah and Tyler lurked behind them in the shadows, whispering furiously, their confident smiles replaced by brittle masks of fake remorse. Victoria, my mother began softly, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. Please, sweetheart, can we come inside? We need to talk. I stood in the center of my living room, arms folded across my chest like armor. I shook my head firmly. No. Whatever you came here to say, you can say it from right where you're standing. My father cleared his throat, his usual booming confidence reduced to a wavering whisper. We made a mistake, Victoria. Things got out of hand at the party. We didn't mean to disrespect you or your beautiful home. I cut him off like a blade, my voice sharp as winter wind. Didn't mean to? I watched you raise a wine glass and toast my failures, Dad. I watched you, Mom, laugh about how useless and pathetic I am. That wasn't some accident. That was the truth you've been carrying in your hearts for years. Savannah couldn't help herself. She scoffed loudly. Oh, come on, Victoria. You're being ridiculously dramatic. Families fight and tease each other. We were just blowing off steam and having some fun. Fun. I stepped closer, my eyes blazing with 32 years of suppressed anger. You broke into my home. You turned it into a stage to humiliate me when I wasn't even there to defend myself. That isn't family bonding, Savannah. That's pure cruelty. Patricia's voice cracked like thin ice. But honey, we're still your blood family. That has to count for something. No, I snapped, my tone steady and absolutely final. Blood isn't enough anymore. Respect matters. Loyalty matters. Love matters. And you've shown me I'll never have any of those things from any of you. Cameron's presence behind me felt like an impenetrable fortress. He didn't speak, but his silence was pure power, his hand resting protectively on my back, reminding me I wasn't standing alone anymore. Tyler tried to interrupt with his oily charm. Look, Victoria, we all got a little carried away with the celebrating. Maybe if you just let us explain. My laughter cut through his words like shattered glass, cold, bitter, but incredibly strong. Carried away? You wanted my cabin, Tyler. You wanted me out of the family picture because the idea of me finally having something beautiful of my own made you all physically sick with jealousy. I looked each of them dead in the eye. Well, guess what? You don't get a seat at this table anymore. Any of you. Savannah's eyes narrowed with pure venom. You'll regret this decision, Victoria. Mark my words, you'll come crawling back eventually. You always do. You're nothing without this family. But this time, my lips curved into the most peaceful smile of my entire life. Not anymore, sister. I'm done begging to belong somewhere I was never truly wanted. You don't own me. You never did. The porch went completely quiet. My family stood there, rattled and confused, expecting the same old Victoria who swallowed insults just to keep the peace. But I didn't flinch. I didn't apologize. I didn't back down. Finally, my mother's shoulders slumped in defeat. My father muttered something under his breath about ungrateful children. One by one, they turned and walked away. The crunch of gravel under their tires as they drove away was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard in my life. Inside my reclaimed sanctuary, Cameron wrapped his strong arms around me. You didn't just stand up to them, Victoria. You buried the old version of yourself, the one who thought she needed their approval to be worthy of love. I leaned against him, feeling a lifetime of emotional weight finally lifting from my shoulders. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about pure, beautiful freedom. That evening, as the Colorado sun dipped behind Lake Granby, I sat on my porch swing with Cameron and Brooklyn. The cabin, once tainted by their betrayal, now glowed with something infinitely stronger, peace. I realized the greatest victory wasn't watching my toxic family scatter in shame and confusion. It was knowing I had finally built a life where their opinions no longer mattered even a little bit. And for the first time in 32 years, Victoria Mitchell felt completely untouchable.